Okay, well, we might as well start this show because the music just ended with 15 seconds to go. I'm actually listening inside of Studio Monitor, and I can hear myself all right. So let me know if that level is good on your end. I don't have my preview up like I normally do. I was listening to it prior, but now my phone's charging, so we'll go from there. Good morning. Hopefully you're doing well. Thank you so much for coming on by. Always exciting to see you guys online. We had a busy week so far since you've seen me last. Lots of stuff going on. In particular, on Sunday afternoon, we surprised our kids by driving to Gatlinburg, Tennessee, which is a place that we went to last year, to the Great Smoky Mountains, the base of the Great Smoky Mountains in the north end, and decided that we were going to go and hang out there for a few days. And so we kind of been planning it for a couple of weeks, and didn't really want to tell anybody, didn't want to spoil a surprise, and we managed to pull it off. And our kids, who typically have a little bit of screen time on our trip home from town when we go into church on Sundays, it's about a 45-minute drive by the time we're leaving Cool Springs to come back to our home near Dixon. And so they get a little screen time before the afternoon, and it's a good way to spend the drive home. Well, they got on their screens after lunch, and about 2 hours later realized that we weren't home yet. So long story short is we pulled into a Buc-ee's. That was on I-40 in Cooksville, I believe it's called. Yeah, Cooksville. The Buc-ee's in Cooksville. And my daughter said, I kind of feel like something else is going on here other than we didn't just drive 2 hours to come to Buc-ee's. And they know me well because I avoid Buc-ee's like the plague because I'm not a people's person. So I don't particularly like crowds. It gives me high anxiety. So instead, she caught on. And so we told them what was up in the parking lot of Buc-ee's. And then we went across the road to Speedway and got gas because it was insanity, as it always is at Buc-ee's. So we didn't want to spend much time there. We did go into Buc-ee's and walk around the store and did the cliche/classic go around and find out what's happening at Buc-ee's. And it wasn't so bad, but we certainly didn't spend any money there. And then went across the road to Speedway, got gas, got a little snack, and got back on the road and headed for Gatlinburg, Tennessee. So we arrived on Sunday, went and got a park pass that night for the week because it's only $15 for multiple days. We were going to be there for 3-ish days, Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So instead of paying for 3 individual days, which would have also been $15, we just bought a week pass. And that was $15, money well spent. And whatever we didn't use, we'll give to the park because we enjoy that a lot. So got to go to Great Smoky Mountains National Park again. And it's a really great park. I really strongly recommend, if you have the ability, to go during the off season, which would be spring break, which is around now. The next 3 weeks will be spring break here in the Tennessee area. Tennessee, anything south of Kentucky, essentially. So people are traveling about. And although it's cool and potentially rainy during this time of year, there are a lot less people. Last year when we went in June or something like that, right as school was out, and that was peak season. We also went during a week that it was 110 degrees. Man, there were people everywhere, just everywhere. You think of the Great Smoky Mountain National Park as one of the largest in this part of the country, but is one of the largest national parks, only dwarfed by Denali and a few other deserts. But it's one of the most walkable, and it is the most popular, accessible national park in the entire country. And so you better believe it that if you go during peak season, which is June, July, you're going to hit a lot of people as well. So we went last year during a peak season and didn't quite enjoy it as much as we enjoyed Shenandoah, which is less trafficked. But we had made a trip out east and then came back. So we hit up Smoky Mountains, then we hit up Shenandoah as a part of Williamsburg, Virginia type of trip. This time around, we just went to Gatlinburg, and the kids really like a hotel that we found out there, which is, I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's called the Holiday Inn Express. It's not fancy at all. And it's relatively inexpensive. And they have a mini little water park with 3 slides and lots of water going everywhere, plus a pool. And it's not an overwhelming water park. It's not a major, 50 slides and all these things. It's just something small, and the kids will spend hours in there. My son, last year, who was just 7 at the time, he went... Oh, am I wigging out here? It's showing that I'm having issues on my stream. Let me pull up. 1 second here, guys. Let me just make sure that the stream's... I need to watch this. Yeah, okay. Poor video quality is what I'm getting. We're not receiving enough video to make this look good. All right, so really sorry if we're having... I don't know what the issue here is. Shouldn't be having issues like that, but maybe it's because I'm dual streaming. I'm going one to my regular page and one over to Keystone, so I may have to sacrifice something for some bandwidth. I know the kids are also playing online, so that might be causing issues, frame drops and such. All right, so let's go ahead and kill. I'm going to kill Twitch and see. I mean, it's only like 3 megs, so I'm not really too sure what major issue here is, but we'll check it out. Okay, so not like I always just get spam over on Twitch anyway, so let's go ahead and stop the Twitch stream and see if the increased bandwidth will settle things down. All right, so went to Gatlinburg this time around, went to a non-expensive hotel. Kids had a great time. My son last year was having issues, like confidence issues, just going down slides. They were a little intimidating. This year, he really had no problem at all. He warmed up in about 10 minutes and went on everything. So he had a great time. My daughter had a good time. The whole family had fun, and it was good. So we just got back from that trip last night and spent several days out there. Went to the park every day pretty much, with the exception of Sunday. We didn't do any hiking on that day, but Tuesday it poured rain, and so that was an interesting hike. But interesting, not bad. It wasn't a bad hike. It was just interesting. So we had good time there. Let me do one more thing to try and settle things down here on the stream. Let me pull this up real quick. I have the ability. Where is it? Here we go. Okay. All right. I'm also going to mute this because yowzas, that's noisy. Okay. So, here we go. So we are home now, unpacked, laundry's underway, and we've got a few more days of spring break, which is what my kids are on right now. We got a few more days of spring break. Really strongly recommend, if you're going to go to Gatlinburg, go in the off season. There were still lots of people there, but it certainly wasn't overcrowded or a real bad, situation or anything like that. It was fine. Lots of families with kids. Downtown Gatlinburg, though, was not jam-packed like it was last year, and so that was really nice to be able to walk around and feel like there was space for everybody. We did a couple of things, one called the Anarchista, which is like a mountaintop adventure, like amusement park for kids mostly. That was cool. Their tram system was down, which was one of the big highlights for us. We were going to go on this tram to take us to the top of the mountain, and instead we had to wait around for an hour to get on a bus, which was kind of a bummer. So next year we'll probably do the other tram, which is the only way up is via tram for that, or it's like a ski lift, So next time we go, I don't know if it'll be next year or not, but next time we go, we'll do the other one and go up and go across the bridge and whatever. There's also a huge one called the Uber or something like that, OBER, and it's an actual tram. It's a box that hangs on a wire, and it goes up every 30 minutes. It goes up and comes back, so you can get a ticket for that, and that has a bunch of things. Where did that other? There it is. That has a bunch of things to do at the top of the hill as well. It was so funny. We noticed that everything that we wanted to do cost about $40 a person, including buying pictures. Somebody tried to sell us a photo. We were at a place yesterday, at a museum where they took a family photo of us, and we were like, oh, that's cool. And they were like, all right, this photo, if you'd like to buy it here, is $40. And I was like, $40? I don't even spend $40 on family pictures on the cruise, let alone at it was like a parrot museum or something like that. So I'm not too sure who thought the prices through, but certainly wasn't anyone. It was just like money was, no object. It was very strange. Anyway, we survived to tell the tale, and not the end of the world. Ooh, good coffee this morning. So all in all, it was a great trip. A little expensive, but we don't do that all the time. So actually, for the 4 or 5 days we were away, it really wasn't that expensive. So I thought it was reasonable for what it was that we spent. All right, my streams are now changing to excellent quality, so that's good news. I did kick my kids off of their screen time, so I'm assuming the bandwidth usage for Minecraft was probably taking up some of that. All right, I'm going to jump over to the vMix socials now, and let's see what is going on inside of the chat. What's going on, Sean? Good morning. Welcome. Hey, I hope you get a chance to get your hands on Turtle Chassis Control Pro, yikes, with embedded Dante Controller. It looks like a great product, and your audio levels are good here. Yeah, let's explore that after we talk about Dante Controller, our little mini lesson walkthrough here today. Just to, and everybody, of course, if you have experiences with Dante Controller, throw your comments in the chat, because that's what makes this good. It's not just my opinion here, or it's not just my experience. It's a collective effort to create one place where everyone can pitch in and provide information. So yes, I'm looking forward to getting my hands on some Turtle gear, because I'm pretty excited about that little Kickstarter. Hey, Winnipeg is here. What's going on, Randy? Good to see you. Thank you for stepping on board. Hey, somebody brought a MacBook into my environment for a show, and I had to learn about Force Multicast on M4250 to make it work. Interesting. Yes, and your stream is dropping a little bit. Yes, well, hopefully we have that rectified now, but keep in touch. Hey, what's your bandwidth on the gateway now? Netgear router, I think you upgraded recently. So I'm using a TP-Link, which was something about 3 years ago I would never have said. But it's the managed side, the managed TP-Link, the Omega system is pretty good. One little thing that I'm navigating right now is actually about my Jet KVM, which I've done a couple of shows about in the past. Jet KVM seems to be dropping, like having network packet problems. And it's happening to both of them, which doesn't eliminate the root cause of maybe it's Jet KVM. But I also wonder if it has something to do with my network, because they're both on the same network, right? So what happens is I'm using it, and then all of a sudden it like freezes up. And if you watch the network stats, it shows that the network packets like disappear. And so I'm wondering if it's not the Omega system, and somehow there's like, well, QoS is off, flow control is off, like it's all wide open. I've even manually changed the port that the Jet KVM is on to be a standard 100 megabits full duplex. So there's no, flapping on that port or anything like that. Changing back and forth, auto negotiate. But that does not seem to have settled it down. So I don't think it's that. Jet KVM is actually a WebRTC protocol. And so I'm wondering if there's something, it's a UDP, right? Not TCP. And I'm wondering if that has something to do with, with that problem. Matter of fact, I'm going to pull that up in settings real quick and look at the network settings. Yeah, so there's nowhere to change it, because I think that if it was TCP, then it may be a little more stable, because there would be checks on every single packet. But to keep it moving as fast as it is, it's a UDP protocol, which is WebRTC. So I'm not too sure if there is any other option. I don't see another option inside the settings, and I could even share this here with you guys so you can see kind of what the settings are. I'm just going to remove this real quick. But okay, so here are the settings inside. This is all the network stuff, and there's time sync, MDNS, domain. I did change this to be this is DHCP. What was the thing I changed today? This MDNS, IPv4 only, just because I didn't want anything to be flapping or anything like that. Oh, there are my text messages. So I didn't want any of that to be changing or trying to auto negotiate. IPv6 is off on my network, so it shouldn't be doing any of that. And I've turned that to be link local only, which seemed to have settled things down a little bit with the Jet KVM. But this morning I was trying to work downstairs while having coffee with my wife, and it kept kicking me off, and it was really driving me nuts. So I decided that probably wasn't the fix. If you watch the stats, though, that's provided by Jet KVM, it does show network packets, and things are actually like I'm dropping packets on that, which is an inherent problem with UDP, is that there are no checks and balances. And so if they don't make it across, guess what? There's no way to really figure out how to get that corrected. So I'm open to suggestions. If anybody has any ideas as to what I might be able to do, then go from there. But hey, good morning. What's going on, Angus? Hopefully you are doing well. With the mention of a turtle gear, I wonder if they'd ever add OMT support or if they're all in on Dante. So from talking with Eamon, I get the impression that he is all in on Dante, and he is he's staying in the kind of like corporate space, so like lecture rooms and conference rooms and all of that stuff. He's staying in that realm. He's not really interested in the live production side. Now, full disclosure, I don't know if there's a non-compete or something like that with his previous employer, but or previous company. So I think he's intentionally swimming in a different lane. His primary focus is more like those bigger corporate installs, not live production. So that's all I've been told. I don't know, by the way, about the non-compete stuff. I have no idea. I'm just wondering. It's purely speculation, and it's just a matter of try and stay out of everybody's lanes. You know, everybody stays in their own, and then the paths don't cross too much. So after extensive testing, it does seem that my P200 freezes up were cable issues. I replaced my long-reeled Cat6 cable and have had solid performance over the last several shows now. Interesting. That is interesting. Cable issues, of all things. Yeah, a non-compete would probably make a lot of sense. Yes. Agreed. I think that is logically what makes most sense. Again, I don't know anything. I've been told nothing about that. I don't know. I don't know what the actual reason is. It would make sense to me if that's what was going on. Okay, so let's dive into. So my wife and kids are home today, so we will try and keep this fairly level. But yeah, we've just come back from a trip and had a really great time. But we should stay on task today, I guess. All right, so let's go ahead and have a little chat about everybody's favorite topic, which is Dante Controller. Now, GoWeb had asked to maybe talk a little bit about Dante. Actually, he didn't even ask. I just assumed that we would do this. But he said, hey, I'm looking to get in to do some Dante stuff with a recording studio space that I have. Is it easy to set up? And my answer there is yes. I mean, if you have any sort of tech savviness at all, I actually think Dante Controller was designed for people who have some level of technology understanding. And so I think that if you are at all used to being in the AV world, you will catch on to Dante Controller fairly quick, and the Dante protocol in and of itself. Now, Dante works really well on a 4250 multicast environment, and there's actually two profiles that you can choose inside of a Engage system, M4250 or 43 or whatever configuration you have. There are two like pre-programmed profiles that Netgear has kind of invented for you. And one is the general AV profile, which starts with the NDI 5, AES 67, Dante audio, yada, 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 yada. That is a good, like, broad, general profile. However, if you know that your network or your VLAN is going to be specifically for Dante only, which I do highly recommend you consider breaking up your AV profiles, then you can pick the audio Dante profile, which is purely designed to run multicast Dante audio. Now, the beautiful thing about running multicast Dante is that you can do what I'm about to show you. You can do multiple, you can do single transmission to multiple receivers, which means that I can send the same audio from one recording device or from one input and send it to multiple outputs. And you are definitely going to want to do this as your Dante fleet expands. Like I always say, you're going to really enjoy using Dante. You're going to really enjoy using NDI. You're going to enjoy using these lightweight AV profiles, and you're going to want to expand. And so if you're going to want to expand, then you're going to want to use more and more of them, and you're going to want to build your system to be resilient enough to handle that. I see vMix is now flagging me that I'm having issues again. on my main stream, which is really frustrating because nobody is using anything right now. So I'm going to put this over here and put this over here and keep an eye on it. You can see my yellow banners going on. So I will keep an eye on it, I guess. I don't know what else to really do other than keep an eye on it. But I guess I could open this stream and see what sort of data encoders. Yeah, I guess this doesn't really tell me anything. All right, well, we'll steady on, and really sorry if this drops out. So you're really going to like using these protocols, is I think what I'm trying to say here. NDI is very versatile, easy to use. There's a little bit of latency, but that's in an environment like this where I am using NDI for this camera angle, for example, or for screen captures. The latency can be we can compensate for that as we send it out to a live stream, because typically you're going to have a 1 or 2 minute delay anyways going to YouTube. So delay is not, adding a few milliseconds of delay is not the end of the world. Now in iMag, you're going to probably want to run a full SDI system anyways, because latency is a problem, and it's a little, discombobulating watching somebody do something on stage and then watching them several seconds later do it on screen. That you don't want to do that. That's introducing latency, and for dumb reasons, I think. So we want to make sure that these systems are resilient enough to handle future expansion, because if you're anything like me, and I can give a very real world anecdotal experience here, you start thinking, all right, now how else do we expand this so that we can be more versatile? And that increases your workload on the network. So first and foremost, build a proper network. You never want your network to be the bottleneck. And so I go back to the Netgear Engage enabled stuff. This is the 4250 consumer line. The enterprise line is the 4350 line, or the 4500 line. Strongly, right now I would take a pause on the 4300s. Okay, so there's 4250, 4350, 4500, and 4300. Those are all the switches, including, well, there's also a router that's a 460X or something like that. Those are the switches in the Engage fleet that are enabled to work with Engage. However, the 4300s, I don't know if this is true or not, but it seems like they were a enterprise switch that got Engage kind of pasted over it, instead of Engage being developed for the switch while it was being conceptualized. The 4300s have been around a little bit longer, and I've noticed the integration with them is a little tricky with the Engage stuff. And so if you can avoid it, the only reason why to really integrate a 4300 into an Engage system is because you already have them. Other than that, I wouldn't recommend you buy them. Go with the 4350s. Okay? Just in terms of Engage being more seamlessly integrated, it seems like the 4350s are more intentionally built for Engage than the other way around with the 4300s. All right, sidebar complete. Now, as you develop your network, first you want to build a proper network. And the beautiful thing with Dante is that it really isn't a network heavy, you don't need a massive backbone to make Dante work. We're talking megabits here, or megabytes, no, megabits in this instance. And same with NDI, like in the video realm where there are OMT or OMT, NDI, 2110, Dante AV. These protocols, NDI is one of the least, especially the HX3 protocol, one of the least network taxing video protocols that you can get. And the trade-off is, again, a few frames of latency. When you get into the realm of like 2110, you need massive backbones, 100 gigabit backbones, just to handle the data throughput for multiple cameras. And so it doesn't make a lot of sense. You're going to have to invest in both the hardware and the backbone to handle that sort of protocol. So NDI is a great little lightweight solution, especially with NDI HX3, to send video across your network, and it works relatively well. Dante is the same way, where we're talking only a few megs per stream, and so you can quickly expand that stream to handle all sorts of audio signals. And then when you combine that with the power of a multicast network, now we can send that same signal to multiple places and really not create a taxation on the network. Depending on how you have your network switches configured, by the way, will really play a big role in how multicast works. If you are daisy chaining your switches together and relying on basically spanning tree to handle things, what I mean is you have a core switch or your main switch, and then you have it connected to a headroom, and then this one connected to a headroom, and then this one connected to a headroom. Multicast doesn't work very well. I mean, it does, but it doesn't work extremely well in that sort of configuration. The way that you think about AV networks is really a spine and leaf setup where you can use, or a star pattern, but that gets a little more complicated and expensive. Spine and leaf essentially means that you have a core switch and all of your switches are connected to that core. And if you want, you can have dual cores, meaning that you can have two cores that are connected with a trunk, okay? Two cores. And then let's say we have three switches underneath. We would have one fiber optic line going to each switch, okay? So one fiber optic line from each core and then a dual trunk between the cores, meaning that if any one path fails back to the core, everything keeps going. It just switches over. Rapid spanning tree, in this instance, will automatically switch things over and find the fastest path back to whatever you designate as your core switch. And in addition, a dual core situation, if you pull the power on core A, everything will default then, rapid spanning tree, again, we're talking milliseconds here, will switch over to running off of core B, and everything will keep going. Inside the engaged system, you can delegate who is the primary core and who is the backup, and who is the primary querier. So in multicast, you need a querier, which is for IGMP snooping and a few other things. You designate who is the querier and who is the non-querier, and then you disable all the rest. So in a proper spine and leaf, we would have our cores as our primary queriers and as our main switches, and then we would have our not switches. Our cores will be the primary brains of the network that govern the DHCP, that do all of that stuff. And then beyond that, we would have our switches, which would be removed out of the querier setup entirely. We would disable that function on those switches so that they never get elected as the querier. As default, by the way, just so that you know, in a multicast situation, the querier is usually elected by the IP with the lowest IP number, which is why it's super important that if you're on the engaged system, that you generally set up routing on your multicast VLANs and you number your switches in succession to how you want them to be elected. Meaning that, let's say core A on your management VLAN, VLAN 1 is 10.1.10.1. Or 10.1.10.10. Let's do that. So on the management VLAN, our core A is 10.1.10.10. And core B is 10.1.10.11. And then our switches will be 10.1.10.20, .21, and .22. Okay, so we keep a little separation there between cores and switches just for our logical, setup. When the election process happens, the auto election process happens, it's going to pick the lowest switch in the world, thinking that this is the core switch or this is the switch that has the lowest value. If you set one of your other switches to the lowest value and you leave everybody a part of the election process, it might pick one of the switches that's really the leaf of the network, which is not what you want. What we want is for data packets to be going from the switch back to the core and to be able to find everything it needs to find, the querier tables, all of the routings, all of that stuff back at the core. We want it to have one hop back to where it needs to go and then to be able to go to its destination. Now, there's a couple of caveats here with this. In particular, if you have a WAC 23, and this is a theory that I have right now, but we're testing it. If you have a WAC 23, what that means is you have a range, an IP range, that is 512 addresses, okay? Because you're utilizing two subnets, essentially, two 254 subnets to handle all of your IP ranges. Let's say we have a large production network or something like that we want to have a lot of devices plugged into. You want all of those packets on that WAC23 to go back to the routing device. Now, typically we have a router or we have a gateway that's operating on that network. So maybe we have maybe our router is the Netgear router, which is the 460X. That is Engage enabled, but maybe we also have a TP-Link, Omeda router that's governing all of the DHCP information, or maybe you've installed this in someone's, network and you're just operating on layer 2. Okay, you want to force all of those packets to go back to the thing that is delegating the routing. You don't want to do internal routing on that VLAN with a WAC23 because they won't be able to find the other octet of IP addresses. They won't be able to do it. So my theory is you have to turn off routing on the Engage. This may be over everybody's head, but this is for the record. Turn that off and force everything to go back to the router. Okay, this is fun for me, probably not for you. So let's talk about Dante then, because Dante uses multicast in its best form, in its native form, I think. Dante uses multicast, which means that I can take a single audio source and I can route it to multiple destinations. Maybe I want to send it to virtual sound card, but then I want to send it to a Dante recorder. Maybe I want to send it to Dante speakers. Maybe I want to, I don't know. It could be a bunch of things. Maybe I want to send it to Dante to NDI converter, which is on my computer that from BirdDog. I actually don't have that, but that's an option where you can convert it to NDI audio and then merge it with an NDI signal, and then you can send that off to wherever you'd like, BirdDog Cloud. The options are really endless when you get your audio into a digital format like Dante. And Dante Multicast is a great way to achieve this because you can send it to multiple places without increasing the workload on your computer or on your Dante network. So we want to enable multicast, and we want to probably use the Dante protocol inside our 4250s in Engage. All right, let me jump back to socials real quick because I see you guys are talking and I'm not paying any attention. Yeah, we're probably just switching satellites at this point. Agreed. We're not dropping yet at this point. Oh, never mind. It just went for a second and you dropped some frames. I use a WAC23 at home. It's been interesting to find a couple of gotchas that aren't issues with 24. Here's my theory with this. All right, and this is just my conspiracy theory. We all know conspiracy theories are conspiracies until they're proven correctly. My conspiracy is that AV manufacturers assume a WAC24 and they design their products for a WAC24 and they don't do much with the networking port. They just assume WAC24 network. That's all they're looking for. When you start introducing a WAC23 and you say it doesn't really work on a 23, they go, it should, which means I didn't test every other network option out there, and why would they? Because the most common network is a 24. They're not doing extensive network testing on 23 or on any other configuration, and so it should work, in theory, is what they mean, but they have not done the testing. I can almost guarantee that this is the way that everything from KVMs to Dante to NDI to all these manufacturers, they're pretty much, that is the standard practice. It's not their fault, quite honestly, because they don't have endless resources to do R&D. To be full disclosure, I would be surprised if they had robust network testing on a WAC23. It just, yes, in theory it should make sense, but the likelihood that a network is going to need more than 254 usable addresses is pretty rare. So they're not doing the testing. Let's just put it out there. I've had a few companies, none that I've been associated with, mind you. A few companies admit, yeah, we don't do a lot of testing on that. But I'm not, that's on me to design a proper network that is adherent to the expectations of the device. Not really the other way around. Oh, well, they should know that, some people don't use a WAC24. It's like, yeah, they should, but they're appealing to the masses and they're trying to make money on this product, not sink endless dollars into R&D. So my theory is they don't test those. And I think I'm not far off. Randy also agrees. Yeah, I don't think I'm far off from this. So when I'm designing networks, I'm thinking more about, all right, the general expectation is WAC24, and I think that that's a fairly safe assumption. Multicast gives us, you have to do, by the way around this is to do proper routing on the network side. That's my job. My job is to figure out how do I route this information so that we can operate on a WAC23 while the devices are expecting to operate on 24. It can be done. It just means I've got to be better at what I do, not necessarily holding every manufacturer to adhere to my hopes and dreams. That's never going to happen, guys. In theory, yes, you should be able to go back to the manufacturer and say, hey, I spent multiple $1,000s on this product. Why doesn't it do standard network things? Yeah, you can do that. It's going to end up with you being really frustrated and not ever getting any answers. So you might as well come back and say, all right, how can I route this then on the network? And we're going to make it work if I need that, but I'm not going to get all upset and make enemies at support departments and all of that sort of stuff. That's not going to end well for anybody. So you might as well think of an alternative route. And routing is actually the way that it probably is going to get done. So internal routing, you can make things inner VLAN aware, by the way. That can be done in Engage. That can be done in your router side. There are multiple ways around that. So multicast and Dante works really well. And I can say this from setting up a few multicast networks, a few Dante networks that run over multicast, can confirm they have done their homework when it comes to multicast. And shout out to Netgear, shout out to the development team at Netgear and the guys at the support department. They really have worked hard at making sure that multicast for Dante works very well. And they are constantly refining, updating, and making sure it works. So Netgear, hands down, some of the best support I've experienced in this industry, and I know because I ran a support department in this industry for 5 years. So if I can tell you, I can smell good support and I can smell bad support, and there's a lot of bad support out there. Netgear has a great support team. So we set up multicast on our system, and that allows us to send multiple signals to multiple destinations. Now, let me give you a little update as to what my multicast system is. Right now, my Dante multicast network is an intercom system for my operators around my production studio. So I have 2 people that run media operations. That's ProPresenter, videos, a few things, some graphics. I have video production person. That is my video switcher. They handle everything that goes out to the final stream, video, and they do fades, cuts, calling cameras, all of that. There's a director position, which is typically me, which will be calling shots, providing direction, making sure we have the same look and feel every single week. I also design the show and make sure it's all ready to go every week. And then my volunteers kind of run things. I'm training a new video production person, so I'm pretty excited to have her on board. And her father, who's actually deployed overseas right now with the military, is allegedly coming home sometime this year, and he is a video production guy and a camera operator. And when he gets home, it's on. I'm so excited. Hopefully he gets deployed somewhere local. So training up his daughter and hoping for him to return. And then I'll have a couple of really good, keen eyes helping me out on video production. And then all my camera operators. So I have 2 camera ops right now, and we're probably going to end up expanding that position to a 3rd camera operator sometime this year or early next year. So we got to go to NAB and see what we can see, and then make some plans from there. So, and I have a moderation desk. So there's somebody that's on what I call moderation, which is somebody sitting in the chat doing chat moderation. A couple of ladies that I really trust to handle that. They also know many of the people that are checking in, so it's very helpful to have their names in the chat moderating things. So I've got, what is that? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 positions, basically. Oh, one that I forgot was the executive desk. My sound guy, my sound engineer, is actually my direct report, my boss, but he also does some executive functions for the nonprofit, and he goes over and sits in the chat, does things like sermon notes and a few other, more. So I have a position called executive desk. That's where he sits during service, and he wears a headset with a microphone so that he can kind of join in. So that position as well. Now, we have belt packs mostly. A couple of the cameras are direct plugins to Blackmagic cameras, and I've done some Dante crossover stuff with that. But in general, we are running belt packs for each of these are Studio Technology incorporated belt packs. They make great products. They work really well. A couple of gotchas with that, but we can talk about that maybe a little later on. And then those plug into TRRS headsets. And I just bought cheap $30 headsets off of Amazon that are replaceable, easy to order. They have nice, clean audio. They have a good microphone that sits right at your mouth. Left and right independent ears, which you get with the Studio belt packs. So you can adjust the left and right ear volumes. I can also assign different audio streams to your left and right ears, because inside of Controller, which I'll show you in a second, those left and right ears on the belt packs come up as individual streams, which means that you don't have to send the same thing to the headphones. You can send one thing and something else if you'd like, which has its advantages. I'll tell you about that in a second. So we have that. We have sound coming out of our soundboard and sound coming back. We do run an X32, which we just bought the Dante card for it, and when that soundboard is on, it's all a part of a sequencer. So when that board is on, those 32 channels, inputs and outputs, also show up inside Dante Controller. So that gives you a good idea as to all of the signals that are flying around. So let's jump over now to that screen, and I'll show you. This is me remoted into that studio. And here you can see each of those sources showing up inside of Dante Controller. When you open up Dante Controller, this routing grid will be blank. But as you start plugging devices in, Dante Controller will auto-find those devices as long as they're on the correct VLAN. So that's why I suggest that you VLAN off all of your Dante sources and you keep them isolated to a single VLAN for this function. Now, this computer is actually plugged into multiple network cards, and so I have one for the internet, which is what we're looking at, literally looking at this computer over the internet, and then I have another one plugged into just the Dante network. In addition to that, then I have all of my Dante devices are only plugged into the Dante VLAN, meaning that they all get IP addresses from the DHCP on that VLAN, which then enable them to operate independently, and then this controller can see all of those sources. Same thing with the X32. That card is plugged into the primary network, which is the Dante network, and then it's feeding that information. Now, it's not on here because it's off right now, but I'll explain some of the exclamations here in a second. So this network then is running the belt packs, which are the ones that are online. There is an AVIO that's there. I have a send and a receive, but the return is on here. So receive is still online, but the send has been turned off because we replaced it with the Dante X32 system. So I'm probably going to eliminate this as well, but more on that in a bit. That's a really recent ad, like in the past 2 weeks. So these belt packs, I've named all of these. They all show up as ST blah, 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 like the last of the Mac. I've gone in and renamed them, and you do all of that inside Dante Controller. Now, this is kind of the default view that you get when you log into Dante Controller. It shows you all your devices that are reporting in, and all Dante Controller really is a way to subscribe multicast streams from a transmitter to a receiver. So we have all of our transmitters across the top. All of our signals that are being transmitted are here across the top. And then we have all of our receivers here across the bottom. So all the things that we can send audio to are also headed here at the bottom of the screen, so you can see all of those. Now what I want to do is I want to expand these two lists or expand individual devices. So let's say I've got my director's headset. This is mine. And I'm transmitting a microphone for that, on that headset. I'm transmitting my microphone signal. And so that's what this line is here. And I need to send that microphone into my radius matrix, which is then combining all of those signals, doing some compression, doing some pre-gain, yada, yada, yada. I want to send that signal as the first Dante signal on my radius receiver. And so I'm going to click radius channel 1 is going to be the director's talking microphone. So I would click this button, yoink, and we subscribe. And it should give me a green check mark. Yep. Now the microphone is subscribed to the radius input, the first input on the radius. And if I guess this isn't up, maybe I can open Composer. Let me see. If I open Composer, it's reporting offline. I'm gonna open recent, I guess. I hate doing this because I don't want to screw anything up, right? Let's see. Open. Here we go. Osh Design. All right, we're currently offline. We'll wait for this guy to turn green. That's the Dante controller. All right. Inside Composer, I'm just going to show you this just for a second so you understand where that signal's going. That Dante, my talking microphone, is tied to channel 1 on the radius. And here in the radius, I have Dante channels 1 through 64, and it is channel 1, okay? So that has now been tied to channel 1. So as I map this out and I send these signals through the chain, channel 1 on the network receiving module is my microphone. Now you can follow the line here. Channel 1 goes into the matrix selector at channel 5, which means that I go to my inputs, okay? And I've labeled this so I remember, and that says Dante 1. Okay, that's my microphone. And then I can take that information and I can say, okay, I want Dante 1 to go out channel 5 inside the matrix, and then it goes into the rest of the system. Now, I'm not going to explain Composer because it gets kind of confusing, but it goes into the system as number 5, okay, and so on and so forth. So let's go back to Controller because that's what this is about. So I do the same for all of the belt packs. So the executive desk, okay, the executive channel is channel 5, and again, I've labeled these channels here inside of the controller. And the beautiful thing is when you do that inside the controller, they show up on your Dante network as those names as well. So I like to change those items. So we can double click on the radius here, for example, and inside here you can label those channels. So director talk, production talk, Pro Presenter 1 talk. This is actually Media Ops now. Media Ops 1 and 2, Executive on 5, Moderation on 6, and Program Out on 7. When you label them here, then it shows it on your Dante network, but also it will show them here in the grid. So now I don't have to guess anymore. I'm like, is Belt Pack Director, which channel 1, which is it? Because by default, it just looks like this, right? Just the numbers. So if you go in and you label your receivers, okay, inside Composer, I want channel 1 on the Dante network to be mine. Then I can say, okay, well, I can label it, double click on the device, and I can label it as Director Talk. And then I remember every time, or maybe I need to relink things, I remember Belt Pack Director is Director Talk 1. And I match them up on the grid. I say, okay, here is the microphone, and I come down here and I connect it to the radius. Click, and that makes the connection. Now, one little thing that you'll maybe notice here is on some of my belt packs, you'll see that I have an error. And what the error is that means, it could mean a bunch of things, but in this instance, it means it's subscribed to a channel that's no longer there. Because my soundboard is off, I am sending out the program on the soundboard as an individual channel back to the Dante network. And what I'm doing there is I'm adding that audio to my headset program and sending it through using a ducker and a bunch of things. But I'm sending it out so that we can hear the program in our headphones. That's happening live at the soundstage. So we don't have to keep taking our headsets on and off to constantly hear what's being said on stage. Instead, it's being piped in to our ears at all times. And for many of us, okay, for me, for example, I'm listening to this output on the Radius board right here. It's the Mono Mix Party Line 1, which is everybody's voices talking on the microphones and the program. And when somebody talks, the program gets ducked and I can hear their voices. And then after they stop talking, a gate opens and the program comes back up, okay? But some of these have these little errors, and that's because in one ear, it's just program. There's no intercoms. And in the other ear, it's the mono. It's this one right here, you'll notice. And so when I talk, I actually only get ducked in one of their ears. This is true for the executive desk and for the ProPresenter team. And the reason why that is because if something happens on stage and they're calling out for, scriptures, or they're saying next slide or whatever, we try to avoid the next slide announcement. But if if ProPresenter, Media Ops, needs to continue to hear what's being said on the stage. And so both of these belt packs, I have two positions for that. Both of them behave that way. So they can wear their headsets, and when I talk, they can only hear me in one ear. And I believe in this instance, it's the right ear. Okay, channel 1 is left, channel 2 is right. So when they talk, the other one stays full on program all the time. And with the studio belt packs, you can actually independently control the volume on both. So they could really crank up the left where the program could be really loud all the time and turn me down in the right. And that way they don't hear me interrupting when maybe there is something being requested on stage. We have, like, for example, little props inside of ProPresenter that are email addresses or websites and things like that. So sometimes they say, oh, email us at, info@oursafeharbor.com. The gal needs to know to press that button. And if I'm talking, she's going to miss that cue. So that is why we have that little exclamation there. And you can see Belt Pack is subscribed to what was Dante X32, and they can't find it on the network, and that's because the soundboard is off. So when that happens, you get a little error. Now when we turn the soundboard on, everything resubscribes. I have confirmed with Dante, a guy that works at Audinate who is really sharp, and I trust his opinion exclusively in most of these matters. He has basically said the way that Dante is designed to work is to auto resubscribe when the device comes back online. And I had him confirm this because of the Radius. There's actually a glitch inside the Radius device where if you re-upload or push a new configuration, you have to come back into Controller and resubscribe. It almost resets all of their outputs, and that's not really how Dante is designed. Most Dante devices, the only one that I know of that does this, by the way, is Composer Radius, the Composer software. But most Dante devices, the standard practice is it will stay subscribed to that device until it is changed inside Controller, meaning that I can turn off a soundboard and all those channels disappear, and when I turn them back on, all those channels come back. That is the standard practice, which means that it's very convenient for you to set up a Dante network. Maybe you're run and gunning it, you're going into concert venues, or you're going into a lecture room, or maybe a conference center, and you already have all your channels pre-configured. So then when you show up and you start powering on switches and Dante devices start getting IP addresses, they're already subscribed. Now the other confirmation is because it's multicast, it's not subscribing over IPv4. All right? It's actually subscribing by name, which is very interesting. As I understand it, by the way, I could be wrong. But it's actually subscribing by name, which means that the IP addresses can change, but the streams remain resilient, which is really smart. Because when we run without DHCP reservation and we're just on DHCP, we really don't want to have to reconnect things if things get new IP addresses, especially if we have other devices joining the network. They may take IP addresses. And so the way that we subscribe is not by IPv4, but by another method, which keeps things quite resilient. So this is very helpful. Now, there's one more thing I want to show you inside Dante Controller. This is a really good overview. I got tons of channels here that you can see how things are subscribed. I'll expand everything so you can kind of see all of this. Here's Radius. Here's my microphones. They're all going into the Radius device. And if, by the way, you don't have something connected, you'll notice here that it's not checked anymore, right? And so I can look at this list real quick and say, oh, well, that's why nobody can hear me, because there's no microphone. And come back here, Director Talk, Channel 1, click, and then it will show me a green check mark when it's subscribed. Boom, done. Now, when I first started this, I was not running a multicast network. I had this set up just as a standard, I think it was a UDP network. And that worked fine, except we were up to about 6 audio streams and pushing more than 100 megs. And that's not going to work. So I wanted to leverage the power of multicast because I'm using the same stream, Party Line 1 mono, for many receiving points, right? There are lots here that are all receiving the same audio stream. And an interesting thing about multicast is the packet is never duplicated until it gets to the end switch, meaning that when I send out a stream onto the network, it doesn't get duplicated until where it is required, meaning that your packet transmission across your fiber connections or your uplinks or whatever, your trunks, remains one packet stream all the time. It's really handy in the NDI world. If NDI would just really double down on multicast and figure it out, then that would be great. But we'll leave it up to Netgear to sort that out. So here, if you have a single stream, and it's also very helpful, like maybe you have one switch that does all your Dante work, well, then it doesn't even need to leave the backplane, which is really nice. And it keeps the multicast bandwidth really low. Well, look at all of these subscriptions I have here. Like I've got 2 per stream. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There'll be another one here. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 just in belt packs. Okay, 13 streams. Now, if each of those streams was 6 megs, 6 times 13, we're going to be in the 70, 80 megs range, somewhere in there, right? Here, you'll notice at the bottom, my multicast audio bandwidth stream is only 16 megs. And we can do that because we can package channels together and really reduce down the amount of network bandwidth needed. So it's a very fascinating way to do this. And the way you do that is we can open our device and we can add them to multicast flow groups. Okay, so you'll notice here on my Radius 12x8, I have a flow group that has all of my needed Dante channels put together in a multicast flow, and the rest of them are not being used. Okay, I don't actually use more than 8 output channels on my Radius as of now, but I have room for 34. So, or I'm sorry, 64. So I could if I wanted to, but I don't need to yet. Again, my brain is like, how can I use all these open channels? Don't worry, I'm going to get there. Just give me some time. But right now I have Party Line left, Party Line right, Party Line mono, which I don't even use left and right now, Party Line mono, and then Party Line Vox. Okay, Party Line back to soundboard, the Teams audio, that's just the talking, no program, and then the director's audio, and then there's one additional channel. So the director's audio is mine in case I, for some reason, just want to send my voice, whatevs. So that is my multicast flow, and that has been put together in one group. It's very easy to do. You hit add, and you select the open channels that you want. You can have up to, I think, you can do them all in the same if you want. But in my instance, I just want to do 8 channels per group, and then that keeps the data very low. When you group them together then it becomes a multicast flow, and all of that data travels across the wire together, and then that means that your data requirements stay extremely low for all of that. Now, I need to do the same for my Dante sound card because I haven't done that yet, but there's also another 32 channels there. But when I did this, when I enabled that flow, this went from like 80 something megs down to 16, which is a substantial savings in terms of bandwidth flow. And that's how it's done. You just put your multicast flows together per your per your transmits, which is up here. If I click on this, you'll open the transmit tab, and then you build your multicast flows for that. And again, I'm not using all 64 channels, and so I don't need to include each of those in multicast flows. I only need the ones that I'm going to use. All right, this is the radius information. Okay, here is a helpful little thing that you should know about. This tool inside Dante Controller will tell us if we're having latency clocking issues. For most of us, okay, the latency allowance that's on the network should be 1 millisecond. Okay, that's a standard configuration, and you can actually set that here on the device latency. So you go to device configuration, latency 1. That's a great, like, middle of the road, fast enough for live, very, very little latency, gives the network enough time to do what it needs to do. If you have a very complicated network, you can up that if you need to, but I actually don't think you will in most of your configurations. So you want to set your latency to 1 on all of your devices across your entire network. And because it's multicast, we're going to be using a PTP clock, all right, a version 2 clock. And that needs to be enabled inside of your Netgear 4250. But if you're using the Dante profile, it's already automatically applied. It's already on. So no need to worry about having to configure things too terribly complicated. You shouldn't need to. Okay, so inside there, then you can see, I meant to show you this, you can then see your latency on the device. And what we're looking for is anything under 1 millisecond, essentially. All right, so we're looking for this to be green and for it not to need to be constantly checking all the time. Now, these are all of the things. So this is the director, this is the executive desk, moderation desk. Everything is pinging in with the, expected latency that we're wanting. Everything's green, which is great. All right. If you're getting latency problems, by the way, if you're getting varying things, that usually is just a configuration issue. It's usually, packet congestion and that sort of thing, which is fairly simple to manage. You don't need to rip everything apart. It's probably just a couple of settings where everything needs to talk the same. And we could get into specifics if that is something that you are having issues with. All right, one last feature I want to show you inside of Dante Controller, which I wish more companies like NDI would do, is we have an updater. And inside the updater is the ability to update your devices from one central location. This thing pings all of your NDI devices and then tells you what updates are available. So these guys are all up to date, and this list is where the updates would be available. I don't have any updates, and that's the way it should be. It should be a single place for you to update your firmware and for you to manage everything Dante. And that, for the most part, this will find most Dante devices that need updating. There are the occasional other products that you have to do manually. But here, to adhere to the Dante protocol, it's supposed to show up in this list, which I love. I think that that's such a great idea, and it's an easy place if you're doing, set a reminder every 3 months, check for updates, and boom. It's an easy place, and it's right inside of Dante Controller. So that's a very handy place to have all of that functioning. All right, let me look here. This is a good little place inside the routing tab, right? So you land here on the page. Inside the routing pad, there's also a device info overview. And this will tell you really important information that you need to know about your network. Primarily that this right here, your addressing and your link speeds. I learned, for example, because of this page, that the studio technology devices, my belt packs that I'm using for my intercoms, don't like auto negotiation. And so here I was getting errors saying it was like flapping back and forth between gig and 100. What I did was I went into my Netgear 4250 and I set all of my belt pack ports to 100 megs full duplex, and it solved the errors that I was getting in here because it kept trying to auto negotiate faster and the belt packs can't do it. So they only use a 10100 port. You have to go in and actually manually set them on your switch, and then it will report back, yes, 100 operating correctly. But if you're getting speed errors here, that's a good indicator that you may just have a 10100 port, which again, Dante is never going to hit 100 megs on a single device. It's very low. It's single digits. It's not ever going to be double. It shouldn't be, unless you have an X32 Dante card or a Radius or something like that. And you'll notice the Radius is a gig port. So that makes sense that's what those speeds are. But this indicated to me that I was having speed issues. It also tells me, names of devices and all that sort of good stuff. So gives me the IP addresses of each of them, shows me that I'm getting .20 addresses, which is the VLAN that I want. And if I'm plugging a device in I don't find it, I can come to this page and see it's not here. It's not showing up on the list, which means that it's not getting a proper IP address, which helps my troubleshooting brain. Okay, maybe I've got it in the wrong port. Maybe it's having a negotiation issue. Maybe it's, maybe I need to remote into it directly and set it and then add it to my VLAN, all that sort of good stuff. So maybe it has a static IP address on a different subnet. It could be a bunch of things, but this will tell me whether or not the Dante network is actually seeing the device or not. And this is a free, Dante Controller is free. You download it for free. It's a great little management tool. All right, the clock status tab lets us delegate who is in charge of the PTP clock on the network. With the Dante network, you need to have a DSP, a digital signal processor. Okay, you can't just have a bunch of transmitters and receivers and not have a DSP. You have to have something that's willing to do the processing, and devices like the Radius or devices like the X32, or you can get a chassis central controller. Is that what it's called? We had our first comment from Mr. Sean. Chassis Control Pro has Dante Controller embedded in it, and I believe it can act as a DSP. I do know that the Manola and the Phoenix devices can act as a DSP. And what it is just a place on your network where the signals are actually being processed from the transmitters to the receivers. The controller is not a DSP. The controller is just a thing that looks for the multicast signals and subscribes receivers to transmitters. That's what it's doing. And that's why controller can operate in multiple instances on the same VLAN. You can run multiple Dante controllers on the same network, and the changes you make here will appear over there, because all it's doing is watching for the subscriptions between multicast transmitters and receivers. And so that's all this is just a report in and allowing you to change. So instead, if I want my microphone to go to a different channel, I can just subscribe it to a different channel. That's all it's doing, is just watching those changes happen. It's not actually processing any data. But here is where then we would designate who is going to be the preferred clock leader. And this needs to be your DSP, more than likely, because the DSP is always on and is always available to process the information. Unless you're turning off your Dante network entirely, the DSP should be on all the time, and it should be your primary clock leader. And that's what this is here. The Radius runs 24/7, very low power draw on a Radius, and it is my preferred leader inside of the network. Now, if the Radius disappears, then it would delegate to something else, but I don't have anything on here that would be a proper clock leader. So it would be this or the X32. Those are my options. All right, on the network status, this gives us that same information that we saw on the grid, but just in a list format, essentially, showing that I have a couple of subscriptions that are currently not able to find the transmitter, but we are having, everything is checking in on green here, so latency status is good. We can see the 1 millisecond right here on all of those devices, and the primary transmit on each, so 2 megs, 2 megs, 2 megs, which is unbelievably low. 10 megs out of the Radius is all we're transmitting. And then the receive side, how much is actually coming in to each of those. So everybody is taking 13 megs from the switch. And I do have a single backplane Dante device that's handling most of my Dante traffic. So it's not even leaving the backplane of that switch. So it's a great little overview, shows you all of your transmitters and receivers all in one spot, and gives you real-time readout of how fast things are going. and I don't have any events. So in the event that I was having errors, this would be a good place to find that information. All right. Dante Controller is super helpful. Very easy to use, very intuitive. Somebody did a lot of effort to make it easy for you to access it, and there's a lot of useful information right there on top. Think of Dante as a way of, it's a digital way of plugging in XLRs from your sources to your receivers. Okay, so instead of physically taking XLR cables and plugging them in, we're taking network, we're doing this digitally, okay, logically, and we're routing them. But the beautiful thing is, instead of physically unplugging from input 1 and changing it to input 4 so that it shows up in my computer as input 4, we're just changing it digitally inside of controller, and that's what that action is. But this also allows us then to have spine and leaf, have a core, have a switch way on the other side of the institution that's plugged in via preferably dual single mode fiber or multi-mode fiber, and then being able to then easily switch sources from there or receivers from there quickly without actually having to physically unplug and plug anything in. We can just send it the source that we want. That's essentially what Dante allows us to do, and keeps it all the highest quality possible that you're allowed to get. So Dante's great for this. It's very intuitive, makes total sense. Most new spaces are all going digital, so video and audio are all going ones and zeros on the network. So if you're developing a new space and you're thinking about doing digital, that is kind of the next logical place for audio to go. It is not like those purists who think that, you know, you have to have physical cables or records sound better than CDs. That whole conversation is not really the same when it comes to Dante audio versus, you know, hardline audio, analog audio. It's not really like that. We can get the purest of quality digitally, just like we can with an analog board. This just gives us the flexibility to basically send it anywhere the network can go, anywhere the multicast network can reach. So strongly recommend that you check out Dante if you haven't done so already. My recording studio will be all Dante, all NDI. It will not be, there will be no physical XLR connections built into the wall. It will be all digital connections, and then probably a Turtle AV product, more than likely. That will be my interface for XLR, which I'm pretty excited about, but we'll cross that road when we get there. So let's finish up here in the chat real quick, and then I'm going to sign off. Hello from Warsaw, Poland. What's going on? iPhone, good to see you again. It's been a little while. Always a pleasure to see you. Coffee's gone cold. Hey, 1 millisecond of latency is great. Agreed. It has performed extremely well. The only time I ever have problems is when I update the radius or make a change in the radius. Then I got to go in and resubscribe things. But I've learned how to negotiate that over time. The problem is that it works so well that I need to make so few changes that when I do make a change, I'm like, oh crap, what did I break? And I have to kind of relearn it again. It's a good problem to have, but good documentation would be probably more desired at this point. Anything else? Yeah, that's a good brief overview of Dante Controller. I think that's hopefully it's helpful. If you don't know anything about Dante or Dante Controller, that is a good introduction. And as I build out the studio, I know you're all dying to know. As I build out the studio, Dante will be a part of that, and so we will talk more about it as things go along. I have made some progress on the barn. I worked on it last week before we left, and I believe that's probably going to end up being what the studio's name is going to be, the barn. We shall see. I'll have to consult with my wife because, she is probably going to be the primary recording artist in that barn, but we'll see what she says. So I have been busy making walls for that studio. We have all been talking about this for quite a while. I've been thinking a lot about insulation and all that good stuff. Well, I finally went ahead and put up the first interior wall of the recording studio last week, and I went a little crazy with the jack studs and the more on this in a second. This isn't actually quite finished, but I went a little crazy with the jack studs and the king studs, which are the ones along the top and the ones along the sides, to create a very solid frame for what will be a very heavy door. Matter of fact, 2 heavy doors. So I spent a long time building this out, and have a lot of wood in the frame to provide some rigidity, as you will see. Had a lot of fun with my building these frames, actually. That worked pretty well. This frame floats 2 inches from this wall, 1 inch from this wall. There are reasonings there, but 2 inches because this is a very active garage where a truck and a air compressor and a bunch of things will be. Not that I'll be running those while I'm recording, but just to isolate sound. And then it's a 10-foot wall high, which actually feels very, very tall when you're in there. And then as we move forward, here I am hanging off of the frame. So that is concrete studded in there. And it's a big space. It's a big door, so I've got it's an 80 by 36 door. The actual interior has to be 82 inches by 38. So that's what that is. And then I had to build a second wall, and this is a 12-foot wall with top plate and everything. And so this is another wall that goes in front, which is also 2 inches away from that wall that you just saw. And some additional beams were put in, another king stud. So you'll notice here there are dual king studs that go up to the top, and that's to provide even more stability for, again, a second door that's very heavy. So that goes all the way to the ceiling. And then we are using these isolation clips. So this is the top of the 10-foot wall that's attached to the 12. This is a rubberized, try and zoom in here. This is a rubberized mount that goes through to stop vibrations between the 2 walls. And then this wall is mounted to that wall. This wall is mounted to the exterior walls, which I think I have a shot of that. Whoops. I have a shot of that here. So, that's the end. Never mind. So I thought I took more pictures than that. Maybe not. But this is the same size opening again, but you'll see more king studs on this one than the previous. I did correct that. Okay, so I did put more. I put another set of studs here on this wall because they recommended doing double, and then I have these 3 on the interior. So yeah, we're gonna be good for heavy doors. I think I'm gonna end up screwing these all together with really long lag screws to just tighten everything down and provide some extreme weight capabilities on that wall. So that's been done. Those walls are now installed, and here it is. That's a good shot. So those walls are now installed, and my office space, which is this space, which is where this show will eventually take place, is getting closer and closer ready for insulation and drywall, which I'm pretty excited about. And this room is ready for insulation and drywall. So we're inching along. The next thing that I think I need to do is plumbing and network. That needs to be done. And one other thing, I can't seem to remember what it was for. But anyways, it's coming along quickly, and I'm pretty happy about that. So more on that as it develops. Last week was a very productive, it was mostly the weekend. I did that first wall on Friday and the second wall on Saturday. We had to go and get a lot of lumber and whatever to finish things up. But it's almost done now. I don't think I have to build any more walls, so now I could probably start buying insulation and initially putting it up on the outside walls. The HVAC needs to be ordered and brought in. So, yeah, baby steps, but it's coming along, and it's going to be pretty exciting to see it finally come together. I'm probably going to hire somebody out to do the drywall because I'm not interested in that. So it'll probably be worth my money to have somebody else do it properly. And yeah, that'll be great. Hey, that's a great name for the studio. Thank you. Yeah, I like it. I think it works. So that's good stuff. Hey, get a Harrison 32 Classic mixer for your studio. A beautiful analog mixer with 64 in and out Dante built in as well. Interesting. Harrison 32 Classic mixer. Yeah, because everything is going to be Dante. So I just want, yeah, I just want it to make sense. The Classic 32. Ooh, that's a big mixer. I'll check that out. See what we can come up with. It's only $100,000. Is that what I'm reading here? Sweetwater, the 32 Classic. Yes, it's $100,000. I'm gonna need to do a little bit of more work, more side jobs in order to afford something like that. Hey, I can't wait to see how you AC the place. Do you mean air condition the place or ace the place? Or probably air condition, right? Yeah, so we're going to be doing, for HVAC, if you really want to know, we're going to be doing dual mini splits, but a mini split in the office with air circulation, with a ERV unit between the office and the recording studio, because I don't want an AC unit in the recording space itself, but I need airflow. So we're going to be doing ventilation, hot extract out the roof of the studio, and because hot air rises, right? And input. Input. That's not right. Exhaust and I'm drawing a blank. Anyways, the airflow will come in the bottom of the studio, recording studio, through a tortuous path, and then the exhaust will also go out through a tortuous path out through the ceiling, so on the opposite end. So we'll be doing HVAC mini split inside my office, and that will be mounted kind of next to the window-ish area, because that's where the exterior wall is. But then as that space cools down, we'll be cycling the air in my office. We'll be mixing the air in my office with the air from the recording space. So there'll be constant airflow happening inside my office and the recording studio to level out, to make both spaces the same temperature. And that HVAC unit will basically be responsible for the heat exchange. The ERV will also do heat exchange, and so that should keep the outside air from warming the inside air. But time will tell over the long term. So call it inflow. I like that term. Okay, we'll call it inflow when talking about the air conditioning. Yeah. So I have a 9,000 BTU mini split coming for that space, and another one for the attic space where my kids will be. They'll have like a playroom. So there'll be a dual zone mini split, but really only one managing the temperature inside of the studio / recording space. So with the office and the recording space for the barn actual studio spot. So that way it'll keep it really quiet inside the recording space. Probably a 2-inch by 2-inch opening that will then go into a tortuous path and that whole system will be decoupled as well from the rest of the structure. So it's going to be it'll be great. I don't know how long the tortuous path needs to be, but I have a whole section underneath the stairs that I'm going to use for that. So more on that as that develops. That'll be a week project, more than likely, getting that box put together. But yeah, that'll be great. I'm looking forward to that. Okay, that's everything for me. It's 11:30. We need to finish up here. So thank you so much for coming along, everybody, keeping the channel alive. Love that. Hopefully this overview of Dante Controller has been somewhat helpful. That's how I do it, at least, and that's how my setup is. And we are, like I said, we're using more and more Dante, and so the X32, for example, is going to feed a multi-track recorder, and that will be multi-track recording all of our music and our lessons and all of that stuff to create high quality recordings straight from Dante, straight from our board, essentially. So looking forward to that. That'll allow me to master tracks as we create music and kind of move into that phase of our creative side of our studio. So it'd be great to offer that as well to potential people that want to rent it. So hopefully you're planning on having a great weekend. Enjoy the remainder of the week. Hey, have a great day, Angus. Always great to see you. We will chat with you guys next week. I have no idea what I'm going to talk about next week, but we'll be back to the regular schedule program. My kids will be back in school. And, I'll be finishing up a project here that supposed to be delivering it on Monday. So I got to do that today and tomorrow, finish all that up and get it good to go. So looking forward to that. And I can give a few vague details about that probably next week. So talk about what roadblocks we ran into while we developed that. So take care of yourselves, take care of each other, look after yourselves, and we will see you again next week, right here, same place, same time. Hopefully you can join us, as always. Be well, everybody. Take care, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.